Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're getting into the new science of exercise. And trust me, it might just change everything you thought you knew about getting fit, getting strong, and living a much longer, healthier life.
You know, for as long as I can remember, the message was always crystal clear, right? If you want to be healthy, you gotta do your cardio. Run, bike, swim. But what if that's not the whole story anymore? Let's dig into why the advice we all grew up with, well, it might be a little outdated.
So, first things first. How did cardio get crowned king in the first place? Well, the story actually starts not with physiology, but with something way more down to earth. Practicality. Specifically, practicality for the researchers.
Yeah, this chart tells a really fascinating story about a kind of historical bias. According to expert Professor Felipe Isidro, science leaned on cardio for a super simple reason. It was just way easier to study. Think about it. Tracking heart rate, tracking oxygen uptake, that's pretty straightforward. But strength training, it's a mess of variables. What exercise, how much weight, how many reps, how much rest, it's complicated. And the result? A huge flood of cardio studies that naturally ended up shaping public health advice for decades.
Okay, so to really understand why things are changing, we need to go on a little journey. We're gonna zoom in, way in, on the one tissue that's at the absolute heart of this new revolution, your muscle. So try to picture your muscle like a giant industrial cable. That big cable is made up of smaller cables, which we call fibers. And each of those fibers is packed with thousands of even smaller wires, the myofibrils. And inside those are the teeny tiny little engines called sarcomeres. That's the spot right there where these proteins slide past each other to generate all the force that lets you, well, move anything.
And here's a super important distinction. Not all muscle growth is created equal. You've got that temporary pump you feel at the gym. That's just fluid rushing into the muscle. But the real goal, the one for long-term health and strength, is building more of those tiny engines, more myofibrils. This is where you're not just, inflating the muscle. You're making it fundamentally denser, stronger, and more capable.
So, if building that true functional strength is the mission, how do we actually do it? This is where we have to stop thinking about workouts and start thinking more like pharmacists. We need to prescribe exercise with a very precise dose. This quote from Professor Isidro really is the heart of the matter. Get the dose right, and exercise is one of the most powerful medicines on the planet. But get it wrong, too much, too little, the wrong kind, and it can be useless or even work against you. It's all about precision.
So what actually goes into this exercise prescription? It's these 5 key variables. A really good program isn't just a random list of exercises. It's a thoughtful plan that pulls and pushes these 5 levers to create a very specific, targeted change in your body.
And this brings us to one of the biggest, most stubborn myths in all of fitness. You've heard it a million times, right? No pain, no gain. The idea that more exhaustion means more results. Well, the science is saying, not so fast. Professor Isidro makes this absolutely critical point. High intensity and high fatigue are not the same thing. True intensity isn't about that last ugly grinding rep. It's about velocity. It's about the speed and the explosive intent you put into the very first rep of a set. When you focus on moving that weight as fast as you can, you actually recruit the most muscle fibers possible, but with very little fatigue. And what does that mean? It means you recover faster so you can train with high quality more often. It's a total game changer.
Okay, so we've seen how to build the muscle the right way. Now for the really cool part. Let's zoom back out and look at how that strong, functional muscle acts like a command center for your entire body's health.
This is just a revolutionary idea. Your muscles aren't just for lifting things, they are active, living endocrine organs. Every single time you make them contract with some real effort, they pump out these powerful little messenger molecules called myokines. And these myokines get into your blood and travel everywhere, to your brain, to your heart, your liver, your pancreas, and they go to work fighting inflammation and basically acting as guardians for your entire system.
And here is one of the most powerful examples of that in action. Your muscles are basically your body's #1 sponge for blood sugar. Just look at that. They can clear up to 75% of the glucose floating around in your blood. This makes them your single biggest weapon for managing metabolic health and for fighting off things like type 2 diabetes. It's huge. All right, we have covered a ton of ground here, the why, the how. But with all these different variables and ideas, you might be thinking, okay, so where on earth do I actually start? What's the one thing that's most critical for long-term success?
For just a minute, I want you to forget about the perfect weight, the perfect number of reps, the perfect program. Because when you are just getting started, there's only one variable, just one, that stands head and shoulders above all the rest.
That's it. It's frequency. Before you obsess over how hard or how heavy or which exercises, just show up. The research is clear. The single most important variable for making this a real lasting habit is doing it consistently. That frequency, that's the foundation. Everything else is built on top of that.
Thanks for joining this explainer. The takeaway here is pretty clear. Building real, functional muscle is one of the most powerful things any of us can do for a longer, healthier life. It's not just about moving your body. It's about sending powerful, positive signals to every part of your system. So the real question is, what signals are you going to send today?